Hey guys, what's up? So in the course of working on a new build for a video I was going to make, I ended up turning my attention to this video instead. I was actually starting off with a new build, and at soul level 26, I decided to throw on Watchdogs and just kind of see what happened. And I came to the quick conclusion that this is the perfect way to learn how to invade. Soul level 26, at least on PC, and I'm assuming PS4, it's really perfection. And the reasoning is, first of all, coming in at soul level 26, you're going to avoid almost all the ganks. I think I ran into maybe one planned gank at soul level 26. If you come in here at like soul level 35, it's a completely different story. Then you will get nothing but planned ganks. But at this level, I was getting all honest co-oppers, with one exception that we'll come to at the end. But for example, I ran into Heisel all the time. So this is clearly, these are players, they're going through the game, they're going through this area for the first time. The competition is not very strong. Your opponents are not going to be very good. You'll have a great opportunity to learn a lot. You're not going to get beaten down really fast. It's just, again, really a great place to start to learn to invade. And I especially like coming in as a watchdog because you'll frequently have backup in the form of another watchdog and you don't have friendly fire with them. So again, it's really a great place to learn. You don't really want to go much over soul level 26 though, because again, you will start to run into the ganks. And my weaponry is at +2, which I recommend. I mean, you could probably go to +3, but again, you're starting to invite some more of the planned ganks, so I would avoid that. In terms of weapons to use, you don't have to use the setup that I'm using here. In fact, I would probably recommend against it. There's a number of weapons. I'll list them below, but real quick, those are the Gru Curved Sword, the Gru Spear Longsword, Irithyll Straight Sword, Flamberge or Claymore. We're going to want to stay away from some of the classic twink weapons like the Dragon Slayer Axe and the Avalon. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But those would be my recommending starting weapons. And you don't have to commit to just one. In fact, I would recommend having a group of them, being able to switch back and forth. I'm actually working on a video on what setups to use and when. And hopefully if you see that, some of these choices will make a bit more sense in that context. But for now, those are the weapons that I would suggest you start off with. Also, whenever possible, try to use buffs and bundles. Now, obviously, there's certain weapons like the Irithyll Straight Sword that you cannot buff nor bundle, and that's okay. It's okay to use those weapons. The Irithyll Straight Sword in particular is a fantastic low-level weapon, but bundles do a flat amount of damage, and that damage is the same regardless of whether you're at soul level 26 or you're at 126. So the percentage of damage that's coming from your buffs and bundles is much, much higher at low levels than it is closer to meta. In fact, it can represent almost half the damage you're doing. So bundling is a good habit to get into anyway, and you can start to work on that here at low level, and you'll see a huge difference in the amount of damage you do when you use them. Now, bundles do more damage than buffs, than regular resins, but resins you don't have to attend to as much. So what I usually like to do is when I have time to open a fight, maybe use a buff, and then supplement it with bundles once those buffs run out. So let's talk about parrying for a moment. I know a lot of players who are new to PvP, I think they get the idea that the ability to parry is kind of like a huge metric of skill, that it really reflects on the player's skill level. That's oftentimes not true. There's a certain amount of truth in it. Low level, you will encounter a lot of parrying from other players because parrying contains so little risk, because if you whiff, nothing bad is really going to happen. I would advise staying away from parrying initially. I mean, if you really want to, go for it. Parrying is a good skill to learn. It's just low level will not punish your whiffs very much, and so it's easy to get into a habit of throwing out way too many parries. If you're mindful of that risk, then go ahead and try it. And again, it's a valuable skill to learn. I think there's more important skills, and I would focus on those first, like spacing and timing. But if you're comfortable, you are learning those, and you're not focused solely on parries. You know, when you get a parry tool in your hand, sometimes that's all you can think about is getting parry reads, and that will prevent you from paying attention to other important things. And I know, because for years, that's how I played. So take a word of advice, put the parry tool away, at least to start with, start developing some of your skills, and then you can come back to it if you want later on. Next up is when you make a build at soul level 26, you're gonna have to make a really important decision, and that is around twinking. Do you want to twink the build or not? And you know, twinking is a continuum. It's not black and white, so you can choose to twink maybe a little bit. Personally, I think you should not twink, especially on your first build, and I'll explain a little bit about why. But first, let's talk about what twinking is. Twinking is really just having end game or later game items that you use in the early game. There's a lot of different things that you can get, but the really big things are Estus and then rings. So Estus, the number of upgrades you get and the number of Estus that you have, you can upgrade those by playing later into the game, then coming back early to invade. That can give you an enormous advantage, especially at this point in the game. You'll have tons more healing than your opponents, but you can just go a little bit of the way into the game, get to like +4, +5. That might be a happy medium. The rings are also a big deal, like Prisoner's Chain and FAP. Now, while my Estus is not that upgraded here, I do have a lot of the rings on this build. I probably would not do that if I were you just starting out, because you may blow people away with your build and it may give you the sense that you're improving or that you're a good player, when in reality it's your gear and your build that's carrying you. Armor is not really such a big deal. Weapons either. I mean, a lot of the very best weapons in the game are available early. The few exceptions I can think of, Avalon, which shoots 3 crossbow bolts at a time, and the Dragon Slayer's Axe. Don't use the Dragon Slayer's Axe to start. It does so much more damage than every other weapon in the game, and again, you'll start to lean on it rather than spacing and timing what you should be learning. So I would avoid using the Dragon Slayer's Axe. If that's really what you want to do, go for it, but again, you just won't be learning nearly as much by doing that. Now, if you don't twink, you will be at a disadvantage versus playing ganks, but coming in at soul level 26, again, there's going to be very few of those, so I would just spec out your build. Normally, most of the players I encountered were not twinked out. There were some definite exceptions, but I think with a build like this, you'll be ready to handle most groups, and then on the occasion when you run into one that you can't, I think that's really okay. So let's talk about playing on PC just a little bit. The problems with cheating on PC are definitely way overstated, but they're not non-existent. So if you're going to invade on PC, I strongly recommend that you run PvP Watchdog. In this particular case, I'm actually not running it, though I normally am. You know, the risk of somebody messing with your game in a really serious way that would require you to have to reset your save file or risk getting banned, that's really unlikely these days. That used to be a big problem maybe 6 months ago. Most of the players that used to mess with players' save files like that have, I guess, gotten bored and they've moved on. So the types of cheating that you run into now, they're aggravating to deal with. It'll cause you to lose some fights you should have won, but nothing really detrimental is going to happen to your save file, so I wouldn't be too worried about that sort of thing. That said, running PvP Watchdog, it's always a good habit to get into, and it'll help give you some information about other players, because sometimes cheating can be a little bit subtle, and especially when you're a brand new player, you don't know really what to look for, you don't know what's normal. So having that additional peace of mind from a tool like PvP Watchdog can be helpful. I actually made a video entirely about PvP Watchdog, and I'll put a link to that video in the description so you can check it out. One more thing I want to say about builds. So if you're going to make a first build, again, I really recommend soul level 26. This is the place to come. If you're more experienced and you're going to go low level, go to like 35 where you can fight the ganks. But for new players, this is really the place to be, this soul level 26. That said, if you're thinking about dueling or invading and you're interested in getting into PvP, but maybe you don't want to make a new build, you don't have time, don't let the build be the thing that stops you from getting involved. I mean, you can start PvP with any build at any soul level. I mean, I think 26 is going to be a lot less frustrating than other soul levels, but by no means is it a requirement. So again, just don't let that be your obstacle. If you're going to make a new build, soul level 26 is great, and it has the advantage that you can make the build very quickly. You don't have to go that far into the game. Like on this build, I don't think I've even beaten Crucifixion Woods yet, and you can get to +3, which is really as much as you need on your Estus to get started. So I mentioned cheating, not such a big problem. Again, there are some exceptions. So you see this guy here, you can tell kind of based on the way he's kitted out that he is a twink. The amount that his Estus are healing indicates to me that he's already in New Game Plus, and this is something you'll run into from time to time. Hosts will go into New Game Plus so they can have 15 plus 10 Estus, which obviously gives them just an amazing mountain of Estus to heal with. And in this case, because he was able to heal when I hit him with the charm, he also has Siegs. He probably has a Blessing. Siegs are one of those things I would recommend having them on your build, but I certainly would not use them except in situations like this against a player that's going to try to eke out so many different advantages. Against normal players, I wouldn't. You see here, my partner there had the right idea to try to kill this guy, but unfortunately he's using something called like No Dead, which enables him to be resurrected when he gets killed. And here he's abusing some sort of script that allows him to move very, very quickly and kind of keep stunning me. And so I'm sort of panic rolling to get away. And then finally the piece de resistance, he busts out a special crossbow bolt that's been cheated to essentially drive my frame rate down to 0 and cause my game to crash. But those types of players, they're pretty rare. So go ahead, play with confidence. Guys, I hope this helps some of you out. Please let me know in the comments if it did. Thanks for stopping by, guys, and take care, everybody.